So we had a lot going on this week. To start, we gotta talk about some of the crazy things happening in the US, and I've decided to split this video up into two parts. So we're gonna focus on domestic news in this one, and then what was supposed to be the second part of the video will come out in a few days. And yeah, just a hint of what to expect. I see some inconsistencies with some of our running theories as to what's happening on the global stage, and I just want to try to go through some of those aspects and see if we can leave with a better understanding of things. Because there's a lot that doesn't quite make sense. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, let's get started. So the first story, the FBI finally came out with the reason for the Las Vegas shooting that took place back in 2017, I think. It turns out he was just really mad at casinos for treating high rollers badly. Oh yeah? Does anyone believe that? Well, if you do, you shouldn't. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the next very stupid story. So we got a guy here who was charged with making forbidden memes, and yeah, he could face prison time, or he was just convicted, so yes, he is going to prison. And really, what can you say? Things are not going well. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this topic, the Nashville shooting, because it's been covered extensively, and my take on it's probably not going to differ from many of the people you already watch. Yes, it is tragic and crazy, however, the response to it has been even crazier. What I will say is this: have you ever wondered what it would be like to see the media and the federal government sympathize with a mass murderer? Well, now you have. On top of that, just reading what everyone's been saying online, well, people have lost their minds. So, once again, act accordingly. Now, it is pretty hard to understand what everyone is thinking while they're pushing this violent rhetoric. But that's the thing. I don't think that they are thinking. For example, on the average social media post, I think what we're seeing is the impasse between the mind virus, psychological manipulation, and those are just meeting this insatiable need for repeated dopamine hits from clicks. The intensity of the culture war is being exacerbated by this strange performative dance that people do for their audience. They consistently ratchet up the violent rhetoric because it leads to more social media interaction. Now, it used to be even bad press is good press, but now it's even hate engagement is engagement. However, the official response has been the most revealing. Holy shit. You know, I'm not even going to go through the examples from the crazy people or the establishment hacks who are making excuses for this, or the unbelievable response from the White House about it, because it's so ludicrous that it feels like some, demoralization campaign. I knew these idiots were low, but good God. Now, kind of against my better judgment, I have some advice for the left. You do know that you're doing irreparable damage to your own cause, right? Just so you know. Or you are allowing insane people to do irreparable damage to your cause because you're afraid of the social cost that comes with speaking out. It's almost as if you've never heard of the concept of winning hearts and minds. And it's more important than people give it credit for, and boy, they are losing that battle. Yes, the pendulum swings, but we'll get back to this aspect in a minute. On top of that though, another message to the left. You are being used by political parties to garner votes and support for their own tyrannical ambition. They don't really give a shit about you. If they did, they would try to calm down the tension. The rising tension, the increase in violence, is only going to lead one place. And it's nowhere good. So why don't you try to use some critical thinking skills, think about human nature, think about group dynamics, because it's all going to play a role. And I know, some of you are going to be saying, who gives a shit, let them crash and burn. And yeah, maybe. But this could escalate beyond our current expectations. And ultimately, they're being used as pawns by the state. And I don't know, I gotta try to warn them a little bit, right? Now, to everyone else not being sucked into that vortex of misery, my advice is simply, don't fall for the divide and conquer tactics. The more attention lunatics get, the more lunatics believe that their actions are justified. And trust me, I know, I have no real answers for you. I'm just seeing this from an outside perspective, as I am nowhere near any of this nonsense. I can just see both sides being manipulated through emotional ploys, and it's very easy to get caught up in it this time. I mean, children were murdered, so I get it, trust me. But my point is, the response to this has been so out there, so crazy, so insane, that it seems like they want to stoke a civil conflict so they can crack down with force. Yes, I believe they need the conflict because people are wising up to the game being played. I know things are rough right now, but trust me, it's going to get way worse. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this point either, but it must be really nice to be so naive and sheltered that you believe that banning guns or banning one specific gun would actually stop violence. Basically, their argument is as follows. Bad man want to do bad thing. Bad man needs a gun to do bad thing. No gun, bad man turns good man. No more violence. Oh, the minds of idiots. And just being that naive, it kinda makes me jealous. Oh, how nice it would be to reduce different issues into such, simplistic garbage and truly, truly believe it. But then again, after thinking about it, you quickly remember that having the ability to use your brain is much better than living in the shadow of imbecility. So, there's that. And now, the pendulum swings. Now, I do have a bit of a shocking statement for you. In general, I am opposed to authoritarian regimes. I know. What a crazy thing for me to say, right? Now, this pendulum swinging back is more than likely not going to take the form of citizen factions. It's going to come in the form of another politician down the road. And, as every institution has been co-opted by the left, well, that does mean that a power struggle will occur at some point in time, seeing as the right is going to need institutional power as well. But as that power struggle happens, a rising figure will emerge. It's a common story. Just take a look throughout history. It may not repeat, but it will rhyme. And that rising figure is going to be way worse than anything we know. So my point simply is that we have to be wary of the authoritarian left pushing the right into their own form of authoritarianism. And I just don't know how people don't see this coming. It's basic human dynamics. Authoritarianism breeds authoritarianism. It's a recipe for disaster, and it's really, really hard to jump off that trajectory. Because those who have been persecuted by the state naturally will want revenge. It's a tale as old as time itself. It turns into this cyclical event of violence and despair. It also leads to perpetual regime change and societal decay. It leads to perpetual destabilization events. So, there's some stuff to think about. Okay, moving on. The Trump indictment. If you ever needed a distraction desperately, well, this is it. Which more than likely is why the grand jury was about to go on recess for a month or so, but then suddenly they decided to announce this. It is interesting timing considering everything we have going on. Now, the comments on this, celebrating the news, really shows that people have zero comprehension regarding what is really happening. Their inability to think critically, mostly due to tribalism and social validation cues, is allowing the most corrupt politicians in the US not only target their political foe, but also to avoid scrutiny for their own crimes. So, all focus is being placed on the perceived bad man, while the real perpetrators continue to fleece the average citizen, destroying their current economic viability and their future. And they're doing this while stripping away all of your rights and issuing in more control mechanisms. So many people are saying that the political Rubicon has been crossed and we cannot come back from this, and that may be true. I mean, if you needed any more proof that we are in some Banana Republic stage, well, here it is. Now, personally, I think it's reasonable to assume that it's going to get thrown out on statute of limitations alone. So yeah, I guess all I gotta say is good luck with this one, weirdos. So we also got a few reports coming out saying that celebrations were taking place in the White House over the indictment. Yeah, they can laugh it up now, but the result of this is either going to be a landslide victory in 2024 or a precedent is set. Yes, quite the interesting precedent, I might add. Which means that if Republicans ever grow a pair of balls and dip out of the uniparty establishment, well shit, doesn't this open up charges against Biden, or I should say the Bidens? What about the Clintons, Obama, George Bush? I mean, this could either be the biggest mistake yet by the establishment, or it could be the biggest mistake yet. We shall see. However, as with everything else, I highly doubt it's going to go the way that the left assumes. It's all very transparent. The hypocrisy is very clear to see for most people. That is, of course, unless you're deliberately ignoring it. I mean, look, these guys right here. 10 wars, millions and millions killed, 1 Nobel Peace Prize, 0 indictments. Now, I could go through scandal after scandal too, for each of them. They have done a lot of evil stuff. But I'm not going to do that right now. Let's try to keep it within the context of Trump's indictment for quote-unquote hush money payments. I mean, dude, Bill Clinton paid Paula Jones $850,000 to stay quiet. If you don't know the story behind it, look it up. And on top of that, Congress actually paid sexual harassment victims $17 million in taxpayer money. Yes, they got caught with the slush fund to pay for sexual harassment claims. So do you guys remember that? Because I do. We won't even get to the Epstein stuff, but come on. Out of everything they could go after, this is what they decide to go after. It kind of says it all, doesn't it? But yeah, while we're talking about politicians using taxpayer money to pay off their sexual harassment claims, personally, I still want to know every single name that used that slush fund to pay somebody off. I don't know, man. We're living in clown world. How can so many people have such short memories? You would think that at least people in the media would remember covering this story. Oh, that's right, they do remember it, but they don't report on it because they're a part of the establishment. You know, they memory hold it because we have a two-tiered system. The establishment and then everyone else. Apply the law equally and you won't hear any qualms from me, but that's not what happens. If you are in the group, you can pretty much do whatever you want. If you threaten their power though, you are the target. Clear as day.
They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged.
So we've had actually quite a few more train derailments. Philadelphia had some barges wreck and leak into the Ohio River. Philadelphia's water supply, as a result, is apparently contaminated. And then we just had one occur in Minnesota as well. Hundreds of Minnesota residents are evacuated as a 40-car train containing hazardous material, including ethanol, derails and bursts into flames. So yeah, this actually happened a few times last week, all carrying hazardous material too. So we're back to the same old question: fifth generational warfare, asymmetrical warfare, or domestic terror. Now, the fact that damn near every train derailment over the last few months was carrying hazardous material, well, that should raise some eyebrows, no? Now, personally, I believe it's all related to the war, but you never know. A lot of people believe it's our own government or radical leftists waging some, domestic terror campaign. If you combine a few things, it kind of makes sense. So if you combine the increase of violent rhetoric coming from the left, the actual murderous plots that they have carried out, even if you consider the attacks on power substations or dating back to 2017, the stories about how anarchist groups are targeting train tracks. Well, it could be that. I don't know. Something is definitely going on though. This is not normal. Even if you want to fall into the narrative that thousands of these happen every year, train derailments, nearly every single one we're seeing right now is carrying dangerous material. It's destroying infrastructure, food and water security, and will have long-lasting ramifications. And that does seem pretty deliberate to me. And really, it could be either or. It could be domestic terror or retaliation for pushing the war in Europe. So I'm still leaning towards retaliation from China and Russia. We shall see how this all shakes out. And we'll get more into the war stuff when we talk about the explosive economic news in the next video. Okay, so the Trojan horse TikTok bill. The bill to ban TikTok is absolutely terrifying. It gives the government the ability to go after anyone they deem as a national security risk, at which point they can access everything from their computer to video games to the Ring camera and security systems. Yes, apparently what's being sold as a TikTok ban is really about a lot more than that. The Restrict Act. So instead of going through it, I came across a pretty good video that describes the situation in about 2 minutes or so. And so let's watch it and then we'll talk about it.
How we use the internet is about to fundamentally change forever, and it's terrifying. This is Bill S686, also known as the Restrict Bill. You'll probably know it as the TikTok ban bill, but it does so much more than just that. It actually does more than any bill I think we've ever seen. I encourage everyone to read it by going here and clicking the text tab, but here are the main takeaways. Foreign adversaries can change by definition, but a few are already listed. They are the People's Republic of China, including Hong Kong, Special Administration Region, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and of course, the Russian Federation and Venezuela under the regime of Nicolas Maduro Moros. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but these definitions can change at any time. The bill covers hardware technology like modems, routers, and home cameras, and virtual tech like VPNs, and basically bans them if they are manufactured by or used to contact and deal with foreign adversaries. Speaking of VPNs, using VPNs to bypass banned apps such as TikTok is made a criminal act under this bill, and the penalty, it's a minimum imprisonment of 20 years and a minimum fine of $250,000 or $1 million, depending if you knowingly did so to access banned content. The bill gives the federal government the power to monitor any activity used by these suspected devices, virtual or otherwise. Essentially, they can monitor what you are doing at home 24/7 without even informing you. This includes things such as routers, video games, streaming apps, smart thermostats, Ring cameras, basically anything that uses the internet. Now, the real terrifying part of all of this, as if that all wasn't terrifying enough, is that the bill goes on to state that this will happen by the president appointing a secretary of communication. That secretary then forms a group on their own without any voter input whatsoever. This group can have meetings behind closed doors. They don't have to disclose anything. They can ban and deem anything inappropriate or a risk to security at any moment in time. And if they do, they can go through your instant messages, your emails, texts, basically anything that uses the internet, and they can censor it. So in summary, this bill can effectively ban anything the government deems inappropriate extremely quickly without warning. The ramifications of this range from breaking up mass communication methods to even watching the cameras in your home, aka spying on you. It really is that bad, and they can go through your instant messages, your emails, texts, basically anything that uses the internet, and they can censor it. So in summary, this bill can effectively ban anything the government deems inappropriate extremely quickly without warning. The ramifications of this range from breaking up mass communication methods to even watching the cameras in your home, aka spying on you. It really is that bad, and I am not speaking in hyperbole. Please contact your reps. I have a video on my TikTok ban playlist on how to find your representatives and tell them if they vote for this, you will support their opponents in their next primary. If I missed anything in this bill, please let me know in the comments. Share this information with anyone and everyone. I will be covering this bill and the TikTok ban throughout, so to stay informed, please make sure to follow.
So yeah, if this bill gets passed, we lose almost all privacy we have. I mean, the fact that anything with 1 million users is now going to be at the government's disposal to review, prosecute, and take possession of. Anything over 1 million users. That encompasses pretty much everything we use day to day. Oh yeah, and if you use a VPN to get around it, you can go to prison. So yeah, always good. And basically, it's the Patriot Act for the digital age. If you pose a risk, something that they can define any way they want, then they have absolute control over everything, all of your data, all of your info. And as I assume, that would be used against you, because of course it would. And trust me, if you're watching this video, then you are probably going to be deemed as a risk, aka a threat. I mean, we all would be. Now one more thing to add, a point that I believe is important to note from Clint Russell at Liberty Lockdown. If it weren't for Twitter, the Restrict Act would have almost certainly passed. Hell, it still might. But think about how crazy that bill is, and then remember that it was not the news or your representatives that warned you, it was citizen journalists. Just always remember, arms manufacturers hate peace, the mainstream media hates truth, Big Pharma hates health, and politicians, well shit, they hate you. Once again, this is Helio Wave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.